Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, March 14th, 2014. Once again, the Ukraine crisis is the top story. President Obama is also once again threatening Russia with sanctions if they don't back off in Ukraine. Russia is also threatening sanctions if it is sanctioned. This is a terrible economic situation that could destroy the global economy if this gets out of control. Now, one of the things the United States that's been brought up in some circles is that the United States could basically kick Russia out of the international payment system called the SWIFT system. They couldn't use dollars, they couldn't transfer money, they couldn't pay for things international with dollars. And one of the other things that was brought up by Jim Willey, the editor of the Hat Trick letter, who was on USA Watchdog this week, he says, Russia might demand payment for its oil and natural gas in gold. And it might not be, uniform, everybody pays. It might be, China, you can pay us in yuan, that's good. India, you can pay us with rupee, that's good. European Union, you need to pay us in gold. Any allies of the West, you all need to pay us in gold. Could you imagine what that would do to the price of gold, to the value of the dollar? I mean, who knows? But I don't think it would be a stabilizing thing. One of the other things talked about that the EU didn't really want to go along with sanctions, but now it looks like Angela Merkel is saying, yeah, sanctions are a possibility. Let's hope it doesn't get to that. That's what she said. Let's hope it doesn't get to that point. Yeah, let's hope it doesn't get to that point. But I don't see any of these sides backing down. Meanwhile, John Kerry has, given Russia a Monday deadline. You either back off or else. Now, what happens this weekend is that there is a referendum on Crimea joining the Russian Federation. They had the Crimean Parliament say that, we'd like to, be have closer ties to Russia and be, folded into the Federation. And, that wasn't good enough. And now there's a referendum. All the people are going to vote. Well, all the people there, the overwhelming majority of people there are Russian. They speak Russian. Reports are that that this referendum will pass by a landslide, 80-90%. That they'll pass to be affiliated with Russia and the Russian Federation. Now, the U.S. is already saying, Ukraine officials, the interim prime minister there is saying that, well, it's not going to be legal. We're not going to recognize it. Same thing with the U.S. It's illegal. We're not going to recognize it. Wow. Well, if this passes with an overwhelming majority, how do we stand up to the world and say, we want countries to have self-determination? We want people to have self-determination. The Ukrainian interim president is a guy by the name of Yatsenyuk. And he says that, that we are going to fight for our sovereignty and we'll never surrender. Well, they may have to fight. I mean, Russia already had 25,000 troops in Crimea. And now reports are the Russian army is amassing on the border of Ukraine. Not only could this be a financial disaster, this could be a disaster that involves nuclear weapons. And a lot of people are saying, well, they're just going to divide Ukraine. And there'll be an East that'll be part of Russia and pro-Russia, and there'll be a West that'll be, pro-EU and pro-the West. And I'm thinking, I don't think so. I mean, I'm just looking at it from Russia's standpoint. They already got Turkey on the other side of the Black Sea. That's a NATO country. There's been many talk for years that they want to make Ukraine a NATO country. And, is Russia going to divide the country and let half of it become a NATO country and move missiles and troops and tanks and stuff on their southwestern border? I just don't think so. I'm not a military expert, but it just sounds to me that Russia would put up a major stake. It'd be like, Puerto Rico is an autonomous region of the U.S. and Russia going in there and saying, hey, listen, we want you to be, pro-Russia. And they have a referendum, and Puerto Rico says, yeah, we like Russia. Do you think we'd let that happen to Puerto Rico? Well, Ukraine is a country, a little smaller than the size of Texas. I just don't think that's going to happen. And Let's be serious here. This could turn into nuclear war. This could turn into nuclear war, and I just have to wonder, doesn't the Obama administration realize the danger of this? That Russia would see this as a national security, a paramount national security issue? That they would go to the wall? And it makes me wonder, do they want war? Do they want war to happen? Or are they just that oblivious and ignorant and arrogant that they're just going to blunder forward? Either way, war could happen, it would be bloody, and it could turn nuclear. Next up, I didn't want to cover this, but in lieu of the fact that we have a major security issue in the globe, in the Ukraine, that I just wonder why the president decided to go on this with this comedic actor Zach Galifianakis. He's part of the the Hangover movies. He's been in those movies, to talk about his failed health care plan. I mean, this is a spoof interview segment with this guy. He's a nice enough guy. I'm not dogging about. I just wonder who is advising the president to, while we're having this major crisis in Ukraine that might, implode the global economy, and it might also cause a nuclear war, that he's going on to pitch his failed health care plan in a spoof interview. How does he look to the rest of the world? Meanwhile, this happened in the same week. This is the same newspaper, a different day, USA Today. This is the headline here on Thursday: back off Ukraine or pay price, Obama warns Putin. Back off Ukraine or pay price, Obama warns Putin. But yet he's doing this spoof interview with some comedic actor about his health care plan that is a disaster. Who is advising the president here? They should fire him or her. I mean, this hurts American credibility. It could hurt the value of our currency. It could hurt our prestige, around the world, particularly when we're making threats for sanctions. And the veiled behind-the-scene threat, even though it wasn't officially made, there's a threat of war here. Let's be serious. I don't understand who's advising the president to do that in this week. Heating up again with Israel and Hamas. Hamas decided to fire dozens of rockets into Israel. Israel responded with airstrikes on what they call terror sites. They had they don't have a peace agreement. They have a ceasefire agreement. Hamas is in Gaza between Egypt and Israel, basically. They had a ceasefire, and now they have a ceasefire again. And I just wonder how long that ceasefire will hold. I also wonder, why did they do this? Was it some sort of test? They're firing rockets that they allegedly got from Iran. Is this a test? One thing's for sure, it doesn't bode well for any kind of peace in the Middle East, that things are not settled down there at all. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, with all this talk of wars and rumors of wars and this bad economic news, is there any wonder why the stock market sold off 230 points on Thursday? Any wonder why that people are getting nervous? I mean, not only have we had not just one piece of negative news on the, retail sales down, and my sources say by almost double digits, there's bad unemployment numbers, there's bad, housing numbers, there's, now one of the latest things that happened this week, inventory build, particularly in autos, autos. The cars are stacking up on the lots. Meanwhile, sales are plunging, the worst plunge in sales for automobiles in something like 5 years. And that's another thing. I told you I'd talk about the economy and these sanctions. Is there anyone not telling the White House, hey, we really don't have a recovery? Threatening these sanctions, that can implode our economy. I mean, don't believe all these numbers. We really have a much higher unemployment rate. We really have a much higher inflation rate. Speaking of inflation, it's bad when the mainstream media starts talking about rising prices. They're not saying, oh, well, it's only a 2% rise like the Fed says. They're talking about rising prices. And Gregory Mannarino says, about this, first of all, about the stock market crisis at traderschoice.net. He says, I think it's rolling over. Look out below. He thinks that this is all bad news, that prices are rising, that the stock market is sinking, and that it will continue to sink, that this is the big one, that you've seen the highs. That's what Greg Manarino says, traderschoice.net. He also says about the inflation issue, he says, forget about that. Yes, we see inflation, but what the problem is deflation of the dollar. The dollar's losing value. And he says it's going to continue to lose value, which means we're going to continue to see greater inflation. And he doesn't see a turnaround in the stock market anytime soon. He thinks this is it. This is the time the stock market rolls over and you've seen the highs, at least for the foreseeable future. Next up, I wanted to talk about this right here, which I find kind of odd. I mean, the CIA spying on the Senate, says, Senator Dianne Feinstein. And to that I say, well, good. Now you finally know how the rest of us Americans feel. You don't like being spied on. We don't like being spied on. And what apparently happened was the CIA went into Senate computers and removed documents. Feinstein says, hey, this is a constitutional issue. This is a problem with separation of powers. It's illegal. The CIA says, well, you didn't have any right for those documents. What? The Oversight Committee, the Intelligence Oversight Committee, the people overseeing the intelligence community, like the CIA, they don't have a right for documents to oversee them? Really? Darrell Issa, the congressman in the House of Representatives, says this incident here borders on treason. This is treason. He said it. It's treason. Some bells and synapses are touching finally in Congress that, hey, maybe this spying has gone on a little too long and gone a little too far. Huh? Maybe. Thank you, Edward Snowden, for bringing this to light. Finally, I wanted to bring up this right here, and I wanted to bring this up because I know a little bit about this area. GOP wins Florida special election. They won a special election in Florida. There was an empty seat. They had, an election, and the Republican, his name is Jolly, he won. He won even though he was outspent 2-1 by the Democrats. I've been telling you that this government shutdown deal is not an issue. The raising of the minimum wage is not really going to be an issue. The issue I've been saying this for a month, is going to be Obamacare because it hits people where they live. And it was a grand lie by an entire party. They lied as a party. I'm not going to go through all the lies again. They got together. They lied as a party. It wasn't going to be cheaper. You couldn't keep your doctor. It's going to be way more expensive for about 85% of the people. And that's what this election hinged on. Now, let me tell you why this is so important. I used to live in this county. This county where this district is Pinellas County. And Pinellas County is part of the Tampa Bay area. The other big county is Hillsborough County. And this is a special place in America. Why? Because it's a test market. When I lived there, I figured, what does that mean? Well, it means all kinds of soft drinks, even restaurants. They'll open a restaurant chain. They're going to have a big chain. One of the places they look to open is Tampa. Or if they're going to have a new soft drink or a new this or a new that, a new product, they'll test market it in Tampa. Why? In the Tampa Bay area. Why? Because it's a microcosm of America. It's very diverse. There's a little bit of everything there. There's old people, there's young people, there's Asian people, there's black people, white people, gay people, straight people, every person, Hispanic people, almost everybody is represented in this area. It's a very unique area. So thus, companies will come there if they're going to open a restaurant or have a new product. They'll come there and test market it. It's a microcosm of America. I think you know where I'm getting to. I think I know what I'm getting to. So if this was a microcosm of America, and the Democrats spent twice as much as the Republican candidate, how do you think voters might vote come November? The Democrats are going to get blistered. And in the state I live in, Senator Kay Hagan, back when she had a 17-point lead, I said, hey, she's toast. She's gone. She's going to be voted out of office. And even Chris Matthews, the ultra left-wing liberal talk show host, admitted this week that the Democrats are going to lose the Senate. I'll tell you something else that may happen. That may happen. They may put a repeal Obamacare bill through. I mean, after all, the president has repealed most of it, at least put it off. I mean, the employer mandates, all these exemptions to companies, now the individual mandate, there's a way to get out of it by filling out a form. They're not going to tax, people who don't sign up. The rollout was a disaster. I mean, it's mostly been kind of gutted anyway by the administration. But let me tell you how this might go. Republicans win control of the Senate. A repeal bill starts in the House. It goes to the Senate. It goes onto the president's desk. He vetoes it. The Republicans get with the Democrats in the Senate and the House and say, do you guys even want to have a prayer to get elected in 2016? Do you even have a prayer? A third of the Senate and all of the House is up for election in every year. A third of the Senate and the House and all the House is up for election. They're going to look at them and say, do you want to have a prayer to ever get elected again? I mean, you're ruining people's lives here. Let's override this veto. And do you know, I think a lot of Democrats would jump ship and do it to save their skins. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com for the weekly news wrap-up. That's the way I see it. Go out and have a nice weekend.